Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, well, it's time for me to say good day,
Good morning.
good afternoon.
Goodness.
You forgot good evening.
That was not...
Loch Ness.
It's not evening. It's not evening.
Well, it's not afternoon either.
Who says it? Time is a concept, my friend.
Anyway, I
Who
think
knows?
I won, yeah.
You did win.
Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show, folks.
Welcome.
We discuss cult television and we set ourselves the spontaneous task of watching Tenko Part 1 last week, and we've watched it. If you don't know what Tenko is, it is 1941 and the terrors of war-torn Europe seem a long way from the small expatriate community living in Singapore. Based on real-life experiences, this is the powerful story of a disparate group of women whose lives are changed forever when they are taken by the Japanese as prisoners of war after the fall of Singapore in 1941. So there you are. Stars Stephanie Beacham, Anne Bell, Louise Jameson, Stephanie Cole. Anyone called Stephanie? My wife's called Stephanie. She's not in it. And it's yeah. It was they did 3 series of this, of 8 parts, I believe.
It was very popular when it was out, wasn't it?
Extremely popular and extremely highly thought of. Louise Jameson notes it as one of her best professional experiences. She made friends for life on the show, still friends with Stephanie Cole and Anne Bell, I know, for example, because she's got them in to do Big Finish audio dramas.
Amazing.
And Anne Bell, amazing actor, incredible career, big movies and everything, and it was such an honour to work with her. Yeah, great people. And also directed by Pennant Roberts, who I think Louise had worked with on Doctor Who. So, yeah, highly thought of. I feel, though, that I'm about to commit an act of blasphemy.
Well, I mean, you know, I would say I was so pleased when I saw Stephanie Cole was in it, because I love her as she's one of my all-time sort of heroes in the industry, acting-wise. So I just absolutely was so pleased to see her in it. But, you know, I don't actually think I'm going to commit such an atrocity. It's a weird one.
I mean, mine's qualified blasphemy.
Well, all the best
I don't mean
forms of
I'm
blasphemy
qualified
are.
to do it. I mean, you know, there are mitigating factors that make me realise that perhaps what I'm about to say after you've said your piece is justifiable and possibly, in the long term, inaccurate.
There was a gigantic,
like a politician.
a gigantic cat in the first episode, but which in retrospect is inaccurate.
Kitty Kong from the Goodies. Yeah.
Well, Post Office Tower. You see, I remember watching a bit of Tenko a few years ago. I never really sat down and watched. I've watched the whole thing, so I can't comment on stuff that happens later on. My initial perspective of this first episode was that at first it felt incredibly long-winded and very talky and very not a lot is really going on, but then what I found is that the more I watched of it, the more I was sitting there, you know, taking in, the more I actually got really into it and found that I was sort of swept off to Singapore and felt really found it very enjoyable, actually. I think the key is just sort of losing yourself in a way that and not thinking about all the other more interesting things you could be doing. It's just, you know,
that's just damning with faint praise.
But, you know, like, what I mean is, you know,
I'm enjoying this because I'm not thinking of all the more interesting things I could be doing.
But what I mean is, it's a lot of talking, you know, a lot of talking and stuff going on, but then actually...
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Yes, I stopped myself from thinking of all the more interesting things.
Come on, though, it's true. Like, that's how you get through talky things, isn't it? You sit there and just think, oh, well... just live in this moment and enjoy it. And I did. You know, I thought it was really good. I thought the acting in it was great. I think that the key to it that I really enjoyed was the setting. Actually, I really enjoyed all the location stuff. You know, very impressive.
Where did they shoot it?
Singapore. The first.
They really did. You're absolutely certain.
Yeah, because I looked on afterwards. I thought, God, this must have been quite expensive to go and do it. And I looked on the internet and I found out that only the first 2 episodes of series 1 were filmed on location in Singapore, and the rest of it was in a set in Dorset.
Yeah, I was going to say in a field in Dorset, but, pretending that it was hot when they were absolutely freezing.
Very fitting, a very, very BBC. But certainly in this first episode, I love the atmosphere because, you know, walking around those wonderful temples and the streets and stuff, I love things like that. So I felt really kind of, it felt wonderfully exotic and interesting, and so I enjoyed it. I think it could have dealt with a bit more. If I could say one thing about it, I would say that the whole bit when there's the bombing taking place, I felt like what it really needed was to make a little bit more of that, and to give it a little bit of oomph, because
no budget
exactly, you know,
no budget for planes and proper explosions,
because nobody was really. And I'm just going to say, nobody was shitting themselves with terror, because quite frankly, if some planes flew over my house and started bombing outside, I would be terrified. But everybody just kind of looks out the window or looks up, and you know, I know that it was fairly inevitable it would happen, but I just kind of thought, I would have been thinking, you know, getting out of there, quite frankly.
Yes, I think that is a fault on the director's side there. I think the director should have said, be more scared.
More haste.
Although I do think that there was also... I mean, one of the themes of this episode is the sort of... maybe accurate, who knows, because we weren't there. The unflappability of the British. Combined with this unflappability... with a sort of stupid ignorance of the potential for danger, you know. So it's like the whole world could see that the Japanese were probably going to attack, but the British ignored it and had guns that only pointed out to sea, and so a land attack by the Japanese would be completely successful because they couldn't turn the guns around. And then they show in this, don't they, how the local army units are completely unprepared for any kind of land attack. And there's that marvellous moment where the officer goes into the cupboard, this visiting officer who's one of the main characters. He's I would say, a husband of one of the main characters, Anne Bell's husband. He goes into a cupboard and finds that all the leaflets detailing how to deal with a tank attack have not even been distributed. They're still bound up in the cupboard. It's David Goodison, isn't it, who's the inefficient commander?
Yes, I believe so.
One of the Davroses from Doctor Who. Arguably the worst Davros.
The least successful Davros. The Davros who didn't really get a new mask made. They just changed them. They just changed the mouth.
Anyway, let's just not get diverted into that ludicrousness. So I think that's one of the reasons, Benji, I reckon, why they're not reacting. I think they were doing that stiff upper lip thing,
I suppose.
And of course they were used to the idea of Britain was being bombed at this time, and another interesting theme is the guilt that Anne Bell's character feels, that she is away from the war, and there they are sitting in the hot sun, although of course typically for the poor BBC, when they shot in Singapore, it clearly wasn't that warm. It looks pretty overcast, which is what made me think, have they just found interesting British locations and dressed them up with exotic looking plants? But apparently it was actually in Singapore.
Off season, I suppose, really.
Well, yeah, it looks like sort of, you know, Kettering. No, sorry. on a dull Sunday afternoon in spring. I've completely lost my train of thought.
Locations, Nick. Locations.
No, that was the deviation. That wasn't what I was talking about.
The lack of preparation and why.
Yeah.
Oh, the Britain was being bombed and the duty.
That's right.
Duty.
That's right, and they all felt very guilty, and that's another thing that comes across here, which again I think is a reason why the reactions to the bombing aren't that startled, because they're used to the idea of warfare. It's not like they're a peaceful society, they've never heard of war. They kind of know that war is coming. So I think that's a mitigating factor against what you were saying.
Well, I think there was a sense of duty. I mean, certainly, like my granddad was too young at the start of the war, and just wanted to get involved. He just felt he wanted to get involved, whereas that's a pretty hectic thing just to think about, really. I want to get involved in a war. It's like, whoa. But it's duty, isn't it? It's duty, I suppose, and it's the sense of purpose. Like she said, I want a purpose. I feel, I have a good life here, but I don't do anything. I don't contribute.
Well, it is incredible, I think, and this is just a general bit of my philosophy, how extreme circumstances can change people's perspectives quite radically. And my only example of having lived through that is the Falklands War, where people, it was weird for me as a bit of a lefty. The national mood seemed to change overnight, and people who you thought were perfectly reasonable, wanted to pick up a machine gun and rush off to the Falklands and shoot the RGs. And I just thought, whoa, what are you going on about? This is a very questionable war. I'm not saying either side was right or wrong. Let's not get into that. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, it changes. People. I suppose it's a deeply personal. War is deeply personal because it's all about.
War is hell.
War is hell. Two perspectives, isn't it? And it's like that. The classic thing about Nazi Germany. Expanding into their neighbouring border countries, and some people thought it was the best thing that Hitler was coming there, and finally they were being involved in greater Germany. They were throwing roses and giving flowers to the troops, whereas other people were crying because they thought, I can see this is not good. Yes. But it's all down to perspective.
It's like Brexit, really.
It is, though. Brexit is the same, isn't it? Brexit is some people
polarizing. Some
people, like that bloke. That bloke who I'm sure is dead now. He was about 80 something. He was on the news when the Brexit vote came through, and he was there going, "I've got my country back. I'm 81 and I've got my country back." And he was in delirious.
It's in the shed. I've got it. It's just under the table. There's my country.
He had delirious tears, whereas other people were crying. Some people were crying, thinking, "Well, that's it. This is the end. What are we going to do?" So it is. It's a very deep and personal. It's different for everybody, isn't it? Really.
Yes, and I think Anne Bell's character very much feels this desire to go back to England, and and her husband tries to persuade her not to go, and how their teenage son will not want her around, and all that kind of nonsense. But funnily enough, the moment the invasion starts. She wants to stay there, and he's thinking, no, now you've got to go. But now she wants to stay because she feels she can help in some way. Now, of course, the problem, as it were, with this episode for me is that it is not Tenko as everyone remembers it. Tenko, as we remember it, was an ensemble piece in a horrible little shack where these poor women had to fight against the odds under the most appalling conditions and a very oppressive regime in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. Because it's very much the Japanese's theory of war is that a vanquished enemy deserved no respect whatsoever.
Definitely, yeah.
And goodness knows what that made them think of the women of the defeated armies, as it were. So it's very harrowing. And as a teenager, when it was on, when was it on?
1981 to 85.
Okay, well, I wasn't a teenager. I was already in my 20s. But I remember finding that sort of relentless degradation of human beings not entertaining. I could see it was powerful drama, but I just found it so upsetting. I'm aware of the awful things that happened because my father spoke to me a lot about the war and made sure I watched the World at War documentary and saw all the terrible things to say to me, your generation must know that this can never happen again. because it will be the end of the human race. So you must, and I remember him, not that this is the subject here, but I remember him making sure I watched the episode about the Holocaust, and sat there with his 14-year-old son while you saw bodies being bulldozed and that kind of awful sight. And he didn't force me to watch it, but he warned me it would be horrific, but he felt it important that I saw it.
100%, yeah.
Particularly because I was excited by war as a child, played toy soldiers and collected all that sort of stuff and was going around playing war. I think, he wanted me to, it's all well and good to be excited by adventure and daring do, but at the same time you must be wary of the realities of it. So that's bizarrely one reason why I found it something that I didn't want to be watching regularly, even though I recognise it as, really great drama. The other thing, of course, it was made by the BBC at that time when they did make things as sort of multi-camera video stuff. And one of the problems, production-wise, with this episode is that, they've got all their, in inverted commas, lovely, if overcast, location work. And then they go inside and then you've got these really, some of the most unrealistic backdrops I've seen in television history, seen through the window, where you can actually see the backdrop just sort of sellotaped to the wall in the background. And you just think, whoa, guys, could you not have put in a bit more effort? But possibly people weren't looking at stuff like that, and I feel like a total arse saying it now. But this, there are two things. It is really, really slow, but it is clearly quite stylish for its time. They've got incidental music,
which is really good, actually. Really brilliant music, I think.
Who's it by?
I don't know if I can tell you that. Let me have a look.
I did. Oh yes, James Harpham. That's his name anyway. I don't know how to pronounce it.
That's who he is. Let's have a look. Yeah.
I don't know what else he's done.
I'll see if I can find out. Tenko.
But I think one of the problems for me, because of the very points they were trying to make in this drama, necessarily none of the characters are particularly likeable.
I do get a vibe of that, actually. You're not wrong.
And if you, and Benji and I were talking about perspective before this podcast, and if you go a little further back in your perspective and look at this, you could say it's just about a bunch of overprivileged racists being quite ignorant of the idea that they could be overthrown. And because they are, they have these servants running around, and they're polite to them, but they're polite in a downwards direction. So it is patronising to all the non-English people in it.
But then I suppose perhaps that's, we're in that time, aren't we, where the after the British Empire and all that, there's that great sense of entitlement by the British.
Well, there was
still there.
The British. The British Empire was still very much a huge thing in the Second World War. It was the Second World War that really knocked it for six.
Destroyed it. Yeah.
It sort of became clear that it was out of date and unsustainable, and the Second World War sort of proved that Britain was really, even though we still persist in this myth, he says controversially, was really no longer a world-class power. And now we, as is a phrase often used, punch above our weight. So I don't think it was particularly well directed. And I don't think it was particularly well written, because I feel that Anne Bell has a natural charisma and a likability, but even her character was, you just thought she was silly and naive, I thought. So yeah, I mean, I tried to watch it a couple of years back when I bought this box set and thought, oh great, Tenko, everyone says it's great, and I have sort of recollections of it being important, interesting drama. And I realised watching this that I'd got halfway through the first episode and given up. And had I not been watching it for this podcast, I would have given up again. I thought particularly there's quite a lot of mediocre acting in it, in the supporting roles. That young officer who chats up the girl who's doing the guide.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he is dreadful.
But then,
And
ironically,
those cod Australian
they're dreadful.
soldiers, they're dreadful as well.
But the bloke who chats up that woman, I found actually he was the only character I actually liked. I felt he seemed like an actually like relatably nice person. Whereas everybody else is so. Perhaps it's down to the class that they were portraying in there. But everybody felt you couldn't really relate to anybody. Like I quite like, the idea at the start. When I can't remember who it was asking for some time off because she wanted to go to that doc.
Yes.
I thought, well, this is
her boyfriend, with her knob of a boyfriend who's just obsessed with having sex with her. Because she won't, he's in a constant mood.
Which is quite amusing. But
so she eventually gives him the birthday present of a hotel room key, which means they're off to do the deed.
Which then he runs with her.
And suddenly he's very, very happy. But afterwards, of course, he proposes to her with all the grace of Nick Briggs. Which none whatsoever.
Well, I suppose we better get married then, I suppose, haven't we?
And she asks for a romantic proposal, and he goes, what? He doesn't even get it. And she goes, yeah, all right then. Whereas at least when my wife pointed out that my proposal wasn't that romantic, I said, give me a moment. And I thought of a romantic one. And then she said, that's rather nice. I said, well, let's just say I said that one.
Just erase your memory of the previous one.
What I'm saying is at least I had the good grace to realise I'd been a complete knob.
But I think you hit the nail on the head with not many likeable characters. I mean, I quite like that nun in it. She was quite amusing. I mean, she was a real cantankerous woman in it, but I actually quite liked her unbreakability. Just sitting.
Did you like her accent?
No.
I mean, is she going to be in the whole series?
I actually think she might be.
With that accent?
Well, I mean, was it?
What is that accent? What was it? Was it French, German,
Sister Ulrika?
Was it stage foreign, as Noel Coward once apparently said that John Hurt and I had a joke about? He was doing an accent, and the director said, "What's that accent you're doing, Noel?" He said, "Stage foreign." Which is a generalised foreign accent. Yes, when you speak like this and no one quite knows what country you are from, but you speak in a foreign way. It's so patronising and racist, and I can't believe I just did it out loud.
Well, that's stage foreign for you. But funny enough though, because I always speak to my mum about the programs that we do, because she used to watch a lot of TV.
Because she's the same age as me.
Exactly. So I get her perspective on it. And a funny thing, she said Tenko was really good. She said, I watched that. She said everybody watched it. She said, she said I wouldn't rush to watch it again. Which I thought, but then she said it had that dreadful woman, that nun in it, who kept going on about stuff. And I, of course, I just thought that's stuck with her.
Totally unconvincing accent.
That stuck with her straight away.
Although she is that lady, she is a great actor. She's been in all sorts of things.
She's very recognisable. But
goodness, what's the name of the actor who plays her again?
Sister
Ulrika.
Blimey, I've lost the page.
Ulrika Kaka. Is she not with Vic and Bob?
Patricia Lawrence.
Patricia Lawrence. Get up her IMDb. Let's redress the balance for Patricia Lawrence.
It's all right, Pat. We're on your side.
Very much of its time, that decision not to have someone of that nationality play the part.
Quite, very much so.
Yeah,
okay, so she's done Jeeves and Wooster, Howard's End. Yeah. Not Howard's Way. The Bill.
Thank goodness.
Call Me Mister. Room with a View. Before Tenko, she did The Gentle Touch, Telford's Change, a couple of armchair thrillers, a couple of Play for Today's, Crown Court.
Armchair, you see. Yeah, she was a real going concern.
New Scotland Yard.
Well, then was sold. Great theme tune. Yeah.
Special Branch as well.
Oh, well, Special Branch. I hope she didn't have to shave with an electric razor. That's what everyone else in Special
Everybody
Branch
does, yeah, all the time.
I'd love to do a pastiche of it, and it's all the characters had those electric razors with those little curly electric wires coming off them. They're all going, yeah, that's the trouble, boss. Yeah, just constant electric shaving going.
Get after him. All right, give me a moment. Just go.
They've just got these really long extension leads going down the road, hanging out of their Ford Granadas. So they're still shaving. Yeah, we could call it the shavers.
The shavers, yeah. They've all just got, like, when they're not shaving, they've all got sort of red raw around here from when they're just constantly buzzing away.
They're Philly shaves, aren't they? Philips shavers. Have you ever used a Philly shave?
I have, yes. Do you
it's like not shaving at all, is it? I mean, I remember thinking my parents, the first razor they gave me was a Philly shave, and I put it on my tough little beard, and I just thought, that's actually not cutting it at all.
Not doing anything. I went through when I used to shave. And I loved shaving. Shaving was that's the one thing about a beard that I miss is shaving. Actually,
I hate shaving, but I don't mind the side bits, which is why I've got a goatee. They're the easy bits.
They are. Yeah, they definitely are the easy bits. But I went through a phase of I bought a really old-fashioned, because I went through this phase. I say it's a phase, a 70s phase of going through all the old stuff, and I bought an old. Well, it's a new, a new version of the old safety razor things that you used to get.
Yeah, I had one of those.
So I used to buy razor blades, and my God, I could tell why people went on to Gillette in the end. God, blimey, the amount of times I just felt like every day it was like, oh yes, this is my daily self-harm session where I cut myself on the face.
Well, it's the inflexibility of the blade, you see, and Gillette, by the way, did do those old ones as well.
I'm sure
I remember
they would
the
have
little
done.
logo on them as I lowered them into the metal clasp. But now we're so used to razors that move with the contours of your face. I'm sounding like a blinking advert now. Whereas those razors, they're absolutely fixed. So if you shave at the wrong angle, you scrape off a big.
Man.
You slice. The times I sliced myself.
Yes,
makes me want to have a beard for the rest of my life.
Especially when you're in a rush. Do you know what? Actually, talking of beards, this is something that might interest you.
I don't know why we're talking about beards rather than Tenko. But
this is really good though. I was looking at, because I got fed up with when you trim your beard down, it makes such a mess. It's just a messy thing. So I've invested in a beard trimmer with an inbuilt vacuum.
Oh,
so you trim your face and it sucks away all the stuff. It's not perfect, as nothing is, but I have to say the amount of mess it has saved me. And it doesn't make any extra noise. It just goes zzz, and all the time it's doing that, it's little things sucking it all in. Brilliant. So,
well, listen, send me a link. I might buy one of those. I might just Amazon that right now.
It's a game changer. This one is by, I can tell you, what is it? It's and prepare for the fact that it's Remington.
Yeah, that's all right. So what is £900?
70 quid.
Yeah,
it's not perfect, so there is going to be,
I'll have to discuss it with my wife.
But captures up to 95% of all hair trimmings. Now you can't say fairer than that, can you?
You can't, literally. Back to Tenko.
Yes. Anyway, no shaving in Tenko. Funnily enough,
was there no shaving? No. Oh, can I say that the Australian journalist who did the final thing where he revealed
brilliant
to the talk on the radio where he told people how unprepared they were for an attack. I may have mentioned him before. What's his name? Can you find out?
Let me have a look.
I met him on a train going into Waterloo. Anyway, he's I fancy that he was in a West End production, and he's a very stately old actor now.
Can you remember what the character's name was?
I don't. Isn't it awful? Unfortunately, on the box set, they just list all the women because, of course, the story was a woman's story. A women's story. Bert Kwok gets a mention, of course. He's not in this episode because the Japanese haven't invaded yet. I fancy there's another episode to go before it really kicks into the Tenko we know. But anyway, yes, lovely old chap. That's my other connection with Tenko. Can I just say controversially that I absolutely hate the theme tune? I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to contrast sort of very sort of English style music with Japanese style music, and the clash is just so discordant and unpleasant and, dare I say, ham-fistedly challenged. I just want to switch it off the moment I hear it.
See, I liked it, but mainly because of all those reasons, that it was just sort of so sort of forced and of its time that I kind of enjoyed it in a terrible way. But then I like anything like that. I'll always like things that are generally pretty bad.
And the fact that they've done the title in a font that is so pastiche Japanese that it's almost unreadable. Interestingly, on the DVD, they've opted to use a different font because otherwise no one would buy it because they had no idea what it was.
This
unreadable.
It's of its, it's of its time in the sense that you can still, at that time, you would still be able to get away with. I think that there's a reason why nowadays in World War II films, the Germans do not always talk like this, and a lot of the time now they all just talk in English, don't they? If it's one of those films, they'll
English accents.
They'll just talk in English accents because we don't need to parody people the same. And I mean, I think I am going to watch more Tenko because I want to get into it. I like all that. I like the. I remember it, like you say, being different to this, and it's iconic. But it's like all those things, and you just have to take it all with a pinch of salt.
Well, I wouldn't do that. I will persist with it because I feel I am being very unfair to it. I give it 2 exclamation marks.
I'll give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 4 because I appreciate.
You're a nice man.
Appreciate what it's doing.
I'm just going by my reaction to it. I found it really. Yeah.
I think
it's about the explosions. It's almost because the BBC didn't make exciting film drama, with lots of editing and clever camera shots and stuff. It's almost like it's like a snobbery thing that they decided not to concentrate on the action, because that would be too trashy. So that's why you just had a few, you had a firecracker lit off to one side of the sets and the rest of it was just flashing lights and unconvincing bits of debris falling on their bed that would have crushed them, I mean, oh, darling, it's only polystyrene. We're perfectly fine. The Japanese are only blowing up polystyrene buildings.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It kind of sucks away a lot of the potential it has to be better by making poor decisions. Ultimately, I give it the 4 and I justify the 4 because I sat and did enjoy it, and I felt by the end of it, I felt like consumed by it, and I thought, well, I could watch another straight away.
Right, I thought, thank God that's over. My duty has been discharged.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think because I know it gets better. I know that it has the potential to be brilliant.
Inevitably,
that makes me want. That makes me want to watch on. But yeah, I mean, from that piece. Yeah, it ain't that for an opener. It ain't all that.
It's just it disappointed me in that quite often stuff that I remember being a bit dull because I was younger when I saw it, that I go back to it and I'm surprised by how intensely interesting and intriguing it is. And this had the opposite effect. This was much worse than I sort of remembered it being.
It's funny.
It's interesting also that they made bold decisions, like in the dance scenes they actually had a live band playing and were clearly shooting it all in one go, which forced all the characters to speak like that, which is realistic. But it really. I just want to say, stop shouting. Would there not be a moment where two people would put their heads together and speak more intimately? You know what I mean? Or go somewhere where it was slightly quieter, but because of the restrictive way in which it was shot, it felt, yes,
I seem to recall them playing almost a Christmas song when they were in there, and I thought, is this meant to be Christmas, or is it originally a waltz that's been hijacked by Christmas?
I don't remember that. I just remember thinking, shut up!
Shut up. Just let the band have a break. Let them have a break.
I'll pay for them all to have a drink. The round is on me.
That's quite a good way of thinking about it. Well, I think that's we've given Tenko a good blast.
Yes, and with apologies to Louise Jameson, but I'm fairly confident she won't listen. So trouble is, someone will tell her now, and she'll say, "I hear you were being rude about my favourite series." But to be fair to Louise, she isn't in this episode, and I'm sure when she arrives, it's like a shining light from heaven.
That was the one thing that I was really sad about, actually, that she wasn't in this episode, because I was kind of waiting for it. I was waiting to see Louise in this, but maybe episode 2.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, oui.
That's talking of patronising foreign accents. Just to say that Jamie Anderson did appear at the end of the last podcast in a rather sad message on his own, which you won't have heard, Benji, but he did call up afterwards. And Jamie Anderson, son of Jerry Anderson, will be featuring in the next podcast for no particularly good reason. And we'll also, in the next podcast, be selecting another topic for discussion. Next time round, we'll be going through your emails, which you send to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Or you can also contact us through our Facebook page, can't you? What's that, Benji?
Facebook.com/The Benji and Nick Show.
Yeah. You can just press the send an email button there and send something through.
It's very easy, very straightforward way of doing it. But we love to hear from you, so please do write in with your recommendations or your thoughts or memories.
Indeed.
Or just abuse.
Abuse is fine. How dare you slag off Tenko?
You fools.
And Sister Ulrika was the best thing in it.
Well, like I said, I thought she was quite fun, but I can imagine it gets grating very quickly.
I couldn't get past the accent. I thought the character was great. Yes.
Yeah, the accent was pretty. Yes.
I'm being harsh. I'm sorry. I feel terrible. Right, well, time to get close to the microphone.
I believe so, yes.
Oh, that was very close.
Well,
made me jump.
Shivers up your spine. Yes. Well, on that illustrious note, then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.